Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of Talkback, brought to you by Kootenai Creek Village. They're the maintenance-free active adult community in Stevensville for the best of Western Montana living. The Mustard Seed Asian Cafe at Southgate Mall. Dig It Excavating, bringing 30 years of excavation excellence to every job. 214-4292. Transport Equipment, your headquarters for RV service, maintenance, and repair, located next to the Axeman. And by Bulls Eyewear. They offer some of the lowest prices in town on contact lenses. See Lynette at 2910 South Reserve. All right, here we are, ladies and gentlemen. The Wednesday edition of Talkback is underway, and this is the Montana World Affairs Council on the radio day. And right over there, I can't see him. Now I can see him, is Bob Seidenschwartz. Hi, Bob.
Good morning, Peter.
How you doing?
John, and our guest, Reza. Good morning to you.
All right. May I totally embarrass you as I read your...
Yeah, you can. It's
okay. Reza Samar is an associate professor of sociolinguistics and applied linguistics. He holds a PhD from the University of Ottawa, Canada, in applied sociolinguistics, and specializes in sociolinguistics, that's variation theory, bilingualism, and intercultural communication. And its application to second foreign language acquisition. He teaches sociolinguistics, second language acquisitions, and discourse analysis at master's and PhD levels, and is the author of numerous books like Aspects of Second Language Speech, a Variationist Perspective.
Variationist perspective.
I almost got through it.
Yeah.
All right, so just some of the things that you've accomplished.
Yeah.
So first of all, Doctor, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right. So, Bob, take it away.
Yeah, I'd also, like to give a little background for Reza. He came to us via Syracuse, New York.
Yeah.
But was born and raised
another New Yorker.
Another New Yorker.
Oh, no.
I don't even know if we consider that a part of New York, though.
Oh, boy.
But Reza was born and raised in Iran, and we had a conversation yesterday. So we will be speaking about some insights that he has of his native country. So we've got a very interesting and open show. But before we get started, I want to mention I heard that John and myself did reach out to the Bernie Sanders camp. In fact, I talked to Meredith Craig, who is the Sanders director, and told her a little bit about the background, the show, and when I mentioned the audience, and basically, I would say probably a conservative audience.
It's huge.
I said it's a large audience. Immediately, bells went off, I heard in the background.
Yeah.
And I heard, trigger warning. And she needed to go to a safe place. So...
Oh, boy.
I'm only kidding. We in all seriousness, we did try to see if we could reach out to his camp to see if he possibly could be on the show, but too short a notice. So, but we have Reza with us, so we're well taken care of today,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us a little bit about how you came to this country, Reza.
Actually, I applied for a sabbatical leave, so I went to spend my sabbatical in Syracuse, New York. And I was in New York, in Syracuse, upstate New York, not New York itself. so for about a year, then I came to Montana for a teaching job.
I was just going to say, what in the world brought you to Montana?
Actually, I didn't know where Montana is or was.
Right.
So I applied, I came to Montana, and I like it.
But you knew what winter was, because coming from
winter's cold in
Syracuse,
Syracuse,
yes,
It
they get
is
a lot of
cold,
snow,
more
very
in
cold.
Syracuse,
Yeah, well, Missoula's got wimpy winters compared to Syracuse.
But
anyway.
I liked it.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
last winter was okay.
Yeah.
So the winters in Syracuse are cold like the shoulders in New York City? Is that kind of how it
Oh, boy.
is that kinda how it goes?
Yeah, it is.
That's sad.
Could you please also tell us a little bit about what you are doing here in Missoula as it relates to the institute that you're working
Yeah,
at?
actually, I'm busy teaching Persian language and culture to Americans. For 25 years, I taught American language and culture to Iranians. Now I'm teaching Iranian culture and language to Americans.
Okay. So now I must ask you. Let's compare. Which audience is the most receptive to what you taught? Was it the Iranians to America?
You want an honest answer?
Yeah.
No, give me a politician's answer, please.
I'm going to give you just honest answers. Iranians.
Okay. So they're much more interested in what's going on in America.
Much more interested, much more excited, and much more eager to learn.
Now why was that?
It goes back to the historical relationship between American and Iranian people. It goes back to Iranian view of the U.S., U.S. culture and language. It goes back to some good work Americans did in in Iran. Again, it goes back to the curiosity of Iranian people to learn more. But on the other hand, Americans live in a very calm and peaceful island, so they are not that interested in other cultures and in other languages. Maybe because of that. But anyway, we try to motivate, to stimulate people to learn more, to understand more, and actually we are receiving very, very good feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And they are learning well.
Are you also teaching the languages to each other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'm curious, what was it like teaching American culture in Iran? Were there limitations on what you were allowed to teach?
Yeah, some limitations. We can't use the word wine in our books. So first they changed the books, and since they didn't have time to change the whole books, so they replaced wine with milk, and sometimes you drank red milk in your books. And as a teacher, I had to explain what a red milk is.
The cow was sore.
Yeah, but anyway, otherwise,
And you couldn't
no
use
problems.
wine because of its connotations with Islam
Yes.
and alcohol,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Okay.
Just because of alcohol.
And you can just say chocolate milk, obviously, like
Anyway,
strawberry milk.
as a teacher, I had to explain these kinds of things.
Of course.
So yeah, and we did well, and people could understand that.
Right.
That's the case. So you have to cope with it.
Sure.
I have a friend from China, and they block a lot of things from the public as far as what they have access to over there. For example, Panama Papers is something he can't even research on Chinese
no.
official search engines, right? Were there things like that from the government on down, ideas or news stories that the Iranian government wanted you not to talk about in your class?
Actually, I think I was the first who brought streamline English language teaching series to Iran, and the only thing I had to change was some words like wine, etc., and some pictures. So you can't have some let's say some pictures in your book. So you had to sometimes just to cover them up. Sometimes you had to exclude those books. But nobody did say anything about the content.
Would these be pictures of the feminine form?
Yeah,
more
feminine.
often than
Mostly
not?
feminine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're up against a break. 721-1290 is our number. We have all four of our lines open. It's 721-1290. And I guess when we come back, I wanted to ask the question. Whenever we have someone from Iran on our show, whether it's you or Mirdad Kia or whoever it might be, they always draw a huge distinction between the vast number of people who live in Iran and the ruling class of Iran, who, with the hard speech and the hard line and death to America and all that sort of thing. And I'm wondering if maybe from your perspective, you're quite literally feet on the ground. Give me the difference between the two from your perspective as an Iranian, okay? And we're going to come right back. By the way, all four lines open, 721-1290. We're coming right back. Back on Talkback, 721-1290 is the number. And we'd love to hear from you. John King's over there. Bob Seidenschwartz joining us here in studio. Now, Reza, let's. I asked you a question before the break about the dichotomy, if you will, between the appearance that American leaders and Iranian leaders, butting heads, can't agree on this, blaming each other, accusing other, that sort of thing. But whenever I hear about the regular Iranian people, they have this fascination. They love America. They want to get together. They want to trade. They want to learn things about. So give us the truth. What's going on here anyway?
Yeah. Actually, are you ready to listen to a story I'm going to tell you?
Yes.
Would love
The
to.
first American name or person I came across with as a kid was a guy by the name of Howard Baskerville. You know him?
I've heard the name.
Okay.
I've heard of the Hounds of Baskerville.
He was the first American who came to the region I lived, which is Azerbaijan of Iran. He fought with revolutionaries 100 years ago. And he was killed there. The first American in Iran was killed by the army of the Shah, Qajari Shah, in Tabriz. And he was is so respected in Iran. Just imagine. Then the second American was Morgan Schuster. 1908, he was hired as the first treasurer of Iranian government.
An American.
From America. And
Wow.
he did a very good job. To make him resign, Russians invaded Iran. Just imagine in 1908.
Wow.
In 1912. They invaded Iran to make Schuster resign because he was taking care of the revenue, money, etc. of Iranian government. So that's the picture of American people we have in historical mind. Then it goes on up to 1953. In 1951, President Truman supported Iranian nationalization of oil. And the bad thing happened in 1953, the coup against Mossadegh. Americans joined Britons in this coup. That's the first bad picture of Americans in our mind. Then we have the Shah regime, right? Many people liked the Shah regime because he was doing a very good job for some time.
He was modernizing Iran.
Yeah, he was modernizing.
Westernizing, if you will.
Yeah, anyway, modernizing,
right.
westernizing.
Sure.
But this modernity was basically in the economical infrastructure of the country, not in the social infrastructure. And Americans could not understand that in that part of the world, they had to go hand in hand. You modernize and at the same time you socialize. They didn't do it.
So can I please, my apologies for interrupting, but this is a constant refrain.
Yeah.
That from a policy perspective, we as the U.S. are able to bring the modernization from a economic standpoint, but for some reason we have not done a very good job of understanding the social component.
You know, the point is you gave money and power to Shah, but you don't give that money and that power to people. That was the point. But at the same time, Iranians never hated Americans.
Sure.
And just I was a young student at that time. I was in all the demonstrations against Shah in the place I did my study, which is Mashhad, a huge city in southeastern Iran, right? But people as students were not anti-Americans. They were anti-Shah. You go to that time, you see many people are not. Actually, we were anti-imperialism, not anti-American. By imperialism, we meant Soviet Union and the U.S., of course. But after revolution, everything was against the U.S. because you know the point? At that time, if you wanted to be a revolutionary, you had to be a communist.
Oh, boy.
And we were not. Right? And communists put pressure on people to be revolutionaries in their terms, which was being anti-American, not anti-Russian. But we always suffered from Russians. But still we are suffering from Russians.
But if left to themselves, if left to themselves, the Iranians would have been, hey, we love America. Is that?
Yes, it is not love that kind of love you are saying. But anyway,
right.
We like Americans.
Yeah.
We like Americans because we had very good relations with them.
Sure.
They would even have like a nice red milk with us.
Yeah.
Sit down and talk about the evening.
You know, one of the I'm not an expert in wine, but one of the best wines in the world is Shiraz.
Uh-huh.
And you know where Shiraz is?
Yes.
It's in Iran?
It's in Iran.
I have to ask you, because at least in America, many of us have very short memories.
Yeah.
Right? So so Mr. Baskerville comes in 1908 and hangs out with the Iranians. They love him, whatever. But do kids these days even know about Mr. Baskerville? Do they know about this love period that happened before 1953? Or is the only sales pitch they get from the state
they
what happened
do not
when
know
Mossadegh
Baskerville,
got
but
over?
they know Bill Gates.
Sure.
Right? They know many other people in NASA.
They know Apple.
They know Apple.
Yeah.
Right? They know many other people. And these people are serving human society, and we don't understand that. You know, in Iran, people know more about America than American people. Many of them know more.
That's one of our kind of, I would say, criticisms, if we're going to be self-critical, is that we are so big and have been so powerful for so long, we do not do a good job of understanding.
Actually, media is not doing a good job.
Right.
You are depicting Iran. You are giving a bad picture of Iran to American people. American people, unfortunately, one, trust their media so much. Second, limit themselves to their neighborhoods.
So I've got a question for you along those lines, limiting yourself to neighborhood. You said you're from Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a question. For the first caller who can identify where Azerbaijan is, gets a date with Peter and John. So, I say that jokingly, but in all seriousness, I will tell you, people do not know where Azerbaijan is in relation to the Caspian Sea, the oil industry, 99% Muslim, the history with Russia. I mean, these are things that are important to understand what's going on in the neighborhood,
Right.
so that we can frame our conversation with a little bit more intelligence.
Right.
So we're up against a break. We're going to come right back. All 4 lines are open. Tell you what, I have a dollar bill for the next person who can call and tell us where Azerbaijan is. Okay? How's that?
You know, these kids these days, they use the internet, even if they don't know, guys. I wouldn't throw my money into a hole. Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
Bernie
they-
Sanders is in town. We can throw the money into a hole if you want to.
Oh, there you go.
But,
All
but, but I'm sure that they're going to tell me what Iranian Azerbaijan is.
Okay. All right. So 721-1290 is our number. We're coming right back. This is Talk Back, the Montana World Affairs Council on the radio. Bob Seidenschwartz joining us. Reza Samar is an associate professor of sociolinguistics and applied linguistics. He's at the University of Montana right now, and we're right in the middle of a conversation. Go ahead.
An answer to where is Azerbaijan? Katie says, north of Iran, south of Russia, and borders the Caspian Sea.
Great.
Give her the ball.
Yeah.
I have a dollar for you.
Yeah.
Katie, you have to come down to the studio.
Actually,
right.
I don't know what if she means Azerbaijan as a country or Azerbaijan as a province of Iran. Because we do have southern and northern Azerbaijan.
Since you said north of Iran, I think
Yeah,
that's
Azerbaijan, the
right.
country. But I was born and raised in Azerbaijan in Iran.
Okay.
Because we do have 2 provinces, East and Western Azerbaijan, on the northwest of Iran, on the borders of that country, Azerbaijan.
We are thoroughly confused, but we will go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, thank you. Can I go back to when you were talking about the Shah,
Okay.
and you had mentioned that he was modernizing the country. So what was it where the social kind of schism took place that was problematic for the Iranian people at that time? So while you say that they very much kind of embraced some aspects of Western culture, where did that come into conflict?
When there is a clash between Western and Eastern cultures, and some people try to use or abuse these clashes, Islamic culture of the country was different from Western culture of the U.S. or of Europe, right? But these differences doesn't mean that they did have to clash. That they had to fight with each other, but we needed somebody to make people understand what kind of a Western culture they are introducing to the country. And we needed some people to understand the culture people had at that time. So help them modernize their culture too. The technology was modernized, but mindsets were not, right? So revolutionary people, Islamists and communists, use these kinds of things. So on the one hand, we had huge pressure from Soviet Union and their affiliates in Iran to put pressure on people to say that this Western culture is against Islamic. Just imagine communists say that Western culture is against Islamic culture. So they pushed people not to accept that culture. And on the other hand, Islamicists, sometimes rightly, sometimes wrongly, thought that this Western culture is going to destroy their Islamic culture. And nobody, by nobody, I mean mostly, there was no people to help people understand these kinds of things, these kinds of differences. They were differences. If you could understand the differences, you can cope with the matter better. Now we do have differences.
They don't necessarily have to be enemies, but there are differences.
Yeah. Now we do have differences.
Okay.
You Americans understand me. I'll try to understand you. Then we don't have any differences anymore.
Okay, we're gonna come right back. We have a whole another hour to visit about this, and Reza will be with us from 9 until 10. We'll take a quick break. Come right back after the top of the hour news here on Talkback. Welcome back to Talkback, hour number 2, brought to you by Nissan Hyundai of Missoula, celebrating their grand opening sale, offering top dollar for trade-ins and 0% financing for up to 72 months. Selway Armory on Stockyard Road, more guns and ammo than anyone in Missoula. The best prices in Montana, Montana's premier firearms dealer, and by AAA. It pays for itself with discounts on big brands. Learn more at AAA.com/Montana. And we are continuing our Montana World Affairs Council on the radio. Bob Seidenschwartz here with us. John King, of course. I'm Peter Christian. Dr. Reza Samar joining us. He's from Iran right now at the University of Montana, teaching sociolinguistics and applied linguistics. Now, we have a Facebook comment, John.
Yes, we do. Elena is calling back to the last half hour, and she says, Did your guest just blame the communists for radicalizing Muslims against America? I remember communist China pre-Nixon hating Americans, but that doesn't explain all of the violence being perpetrated in today's world over and against non-believers.
Yeah, she's absolutely right. I blame communists for pushing, especially Iranian students, to be more revolutionary, which meant being more anti-imperialistic. Imperialism at that time was the U.S. They pushed it, but after hostage crisis, then other people tried to use the same notion, the same discourse, the same thing to gain power in Iran, and they did so. Americans made a mistake. They cut their relations. And this cutting the relations was a dangerous thing to do. The thing Russians never do. I do remember reading the history of constitutional revolution almost 100 years ago. The Russian chief of the police in Iran was killing people and shelling the parliament. At the same time, Russian consulate opened their doors and gave refuge to Iranian revolutionaries. Just imagine, on the one hand, they were killing people. On the other hand, they gave refuge to Iranians. But Americans, unfortunately, broke their relations and closed their embassy. And this caused people to use this anti-American emotions and sensitivities at that time to promote anti-Americanism. Otherwise, people didn't have any problems with the U.S. But since young people wanted to be more revolutionary compared to communists, they had to do something. And by mistake, they did so. And then when you break the relationships, when you don't have any communication, so what do you hear from each other? You hear death to America from Iran, and you hear death to Iran from the U.S. Then you are enemies. You never try to understand each other. That was the I think that was the mistake U.S. made.
Are you talking about the 1950s?
1980s.
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 Okay. All right.
Right?
No.
So for some time we didn't have we didn't have any dialogue. And that helped Iranian youth, Iranian revolutionaries to be more anti-American for some time.
You're saying by cutting off that
dialogue,
we just continued to feed the rhetoric and feed the
and on the other hand,
anti-Americanism.
Russians pushed they always do so. They pushed Iranians to be more anti-American because it is in their self-interest to do so. And they always did it.
Well, and that goes to the heart of what was happening.
So we lost this understanding between Americans and Iranians for a very long time.
So, Reza, go back to the 50s, though, because that was really the height of the Cold War.
Okay.
So Russia's pushing down into Iran.
Yes.
The U.S. is pushing back.
Yeah.
The Shah is our ally.
Yes.
And you've got different elements within Iran that were having issues. So are you saying that the Communist Party, Russia, was deeply involved in Iran in terms of stirring this ferment at this time?
Yeah.
And that was part of our reason and support for the Shah was this was a Cold War battle.
Let me ask you this. How do you know that? How do you know that that's true? I know that you're quite literally on the ground. You live there. So how do you know about this communist motivation? Yeah, whatever that has happened that happened in Iran as being a true fact.
Because I was there. Because I was one of the students involved in these kinds of things. Because I had communist friends. We always had huge discussions on these kinds of things. So you wanted to be revolutionary. Because everybody wanted to be revolutionary. Even Shah supporters wanted to be a revolutionary. It is the time for a revolution, right? So what kind of a revolution are you going to be if you're not anti-American? That you need to understand this.
Sure. Okay.
But when you get back, remove this kind of communist discourse or rhetoric from the society, then you see people in their hearts do not believe in these kinds of things, do not believe being anti anything but Russia, but they never say so.
Speaking of revolutionaries, in town today in Missoula, we have Bernie Sanders,
right?
Which many people feel is a revolutionary figure, would radically change American governance, yada, yada, yada. No, he claims he would do that. Okay, I'm not. Okay, so my question for you is, How does the Iranian people, how do they view Americans' political scene? Do they have a favorite? Do they have a least favorite of the major candidates?
Sure. First, American election is all over Iran. Iranian media, Iranian, Telegram communication, FaceTime communication, Viber communication, everywhere it is. So people in Iran know who Trump is. They know who Bernie Sanders is. They know who Hillary Clinton is. They don't know who Rubio was. Anyway, they know these guys. I think, as far as I know, I read the news, their favorite is Bernie Sanders, because I think Bernie Sanders has some sort of understanding of the problems in the region. But they don't like Hillary Clinton because of the bad experience we had.
I was just going to say that if you would think anybody that would have a knowledge on the ground of what's going on in the Middle East, it would be the former Secretary of State. But you say they don't trust her.
They don't trust Hillary Clinton?
Yeah.
Because of the bad experience they have. Hillary supporting many other powers in the region when she was a Secretary of State. But anyway, they don't oppose to Hillary. They prefer Hillary to Trump. Because of the bad experience we had with Ahmadinejad.
Tell us about that connection. So you said that there's basically a nickname for Donald Trump in Iran.
Trump Ahmadinejad.
So for those that are listening that may not know who Ahmadinejad is, tell us a little bit about this character in Iranian politics and the comparison.
We're up against a break. I don't want to cut you off. I want to get the whole story here. All four of our lines open. Trump Ahmadinejad. I like it. We're going to come right back. 721. How do you spell it? We're coming right back. We're back on Talk Back, the Montana World Affairs Council on the radio, having a fascinating discussion with a gentleman who is from Iran, and we are just getting into the whole American political scene. You were talking about Donald Trump, Reza. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, actually, when you look at the strategies Donald Trump has, it reminds you of Ahmadinejad's strategies when he wanted to be elected as a president. The kind of rhetoric he used, the kind of language he used, the kind
of bombastic.
Yeah, bombastic, anti-administration, making Iran great again. Then that populist language with no program, no strategy, nothing, just speaking to people. Using people language, as he said, saying what they wanted to hear, basically. Yes, just whatever you wanted to hear, you could hear it from Ahmadinejad with no.
Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
He very much appealed to. Would you describe what that population was, their background, socioeconomic?
Actually, in Iran, it was basically lower classes who supported lower classes, and in rural areas. He had huge support because he spoke the language of these people. So middle-class educated people didn't like Ahmadinejad because he used sometimes very bad language. Something no interpreter was able to interpret. But other people, lower-class people, non-educated people, people in the villages could understand him, and he spoke their language. He promised them to give him better life, and he won the election for the first time. So since the discourses are so similar to each other, we can understand Trump much better than you.
Yes.
So did he promise them a better life by protecting them from outside threats, or by giving them stuff from the government, or by enforcing their way of life, their morality, or what?
Whatever came to his mind. Whatever came to his mind, true or false,
kind of a stream of consciousness,
possible or impossible.
Yeah.
He gave too many promises. Yeah, he said, I'm going to bring the money of the oil direct to your homes.
That's cool.
That's very good thing.
Trump's going to pay off the debt in 8 years.
Very famous thing he used.
Going to renegotiate.
Yeah.
The difference.
I am curious to hear, though, since Bernie's in town today.
Yeah.
What is it that Bernie said that triggered this love and sympathy for him in Iran?
When you are fair and you speak about Middle East, you have to speak just about Iranians, Arabs, and Israel. You can't just support Israel 100%, then just do not say anything in support of, let's say, Iranians or Arabs. You have to be fair. There are some wrongdoings in Israel. There are some wrongdoings in Iran, and there are some wrongdoings in Arabic countries. And at the same time, there are some very good things going on in Israel, in Iran, in Arabic countries. If you are fair, you have to give some kind of balance to all this. Bernie does it. Others, unfortunately, don't.
Do you feel that they are balanced in the harms they present to the world, these different countries?
They are not.
Or group.
They
Well,
are not.
And
but
we are mixing, I think.
Yeah.
We're mixing Israel, the country, with Arabs in general, and
Yeah.
Iran as a country. So if we could just talk about the countries, do you feel that the different countries represent equal threats to the world?
Of course not. Of course not. But anyway, if you are fair, you know what threats are, what unthreats are. You have to speak about both.
Sure.
But if you say that this country is just the best in the world, no threats, nothing, everything is good about that, and everything else is bad about this country, it's not fair.
Okay.
So, tell you what, we're going to go to the phones. We have a caller, so strap those headphones on there, Reza, and later we'll go over right here, push that button, and talk with Dave. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning. I was wondering what the Iranian people feel about Assad. Now, our American government does not like him, but I was just curious. I mean, the Iranian government is supporting Assad, but I'm just curious what the people of Iran believe about him.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dave, for your call. Let me tell you something. You know, for 8 years, Iranians were involved with the war with Saddam Hussein. I'm sure you do remember that. Mm-hmm. And during that time, all countries, basically US, Russia, England, Germany, Europe, everybody supported Saddam. The only supporter Iran had in the region was Assad. Right? So Iranians owe something to Assad. Personally, I don't like him. I don't support him. But anyway, when you think fairly, Iranians owe something to him. Because he supported Iran for 8 years. The only supporter Iran had was Assad. He couldn't give any money or any army, any military things, but psychologically and socially, he supported Iranian people. So Iranians owe something to him. At the same time, from the policy level, that's the strategies governments and policymakers have. It is so difficult to understand these kinds of policies. But from Iranian people point of view, yeah, they owe something to Assad.
So if I'm not mistaken, during this time, right, the Soviet Union was still kind of considered a threat, even though it was waning.
Yes.
And that alliance between Assad, who still has a close tie with Russia, and Iran, who also has a pretty close tie with Russia, was seen as an existential threat, basically, to the West. If the Soviet Union were to expand and take Iran. And, you know, a lot of people kind of see it as a bear trap or whatever, this war between Iran and Iraq, right?
The amazing thing is, Soviet Union at the time, actually, they know how to play the things in the region because they do understand the cultures, the society, psychology of the people there. So during that time, we were bombarded and shelled by Saddam using Soviet Union missiles and the airplanes. Just imagine, Assad supported us, but Soviets supported Saddam.
Wow.
And I witnessed so many huge missiles hitting Tehran, killing kids in hospitals, in schools. And these missiles were made by Russians, given to Saddam mostly for free. So that's the reality of the region.
We're up against a break. 721-1290. This is fascinating. I will bet you that 99.9999% of our audience has never heard these things.
Yeah.
Okay? It's really good that you're here. We appreciate it. 721-1290 is our number. We're coming right back. Hey, we're back on Talkback, and thanks so much for joining us on the Montana World Affairs Council on the radio. Reza Samar is joining us here in studio. He's from Iran. We've been talking about his basically on-the-ground experiences in Iran and how they differ from what we've been told and had been hammered into our heads for years and years and years. But we do have a caller on the line. Let's get right to him. Mark, thanks for holding. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Hi. Hello, gentlemen and John. Okay, my question is religious
It took us a minute to catch that.
Okay, go ahead. What's up, Mark?
Okay, my question is on religious matter. And from what I understand, the two main religions over there are the Sunni and Shiites.
Yeah,
But here in America, we got like 30, 40 different, religious, most of them Christianity. We do have Muslims and that. And we all get along together, the different religions. So why is it taking so long over there in the Middle East for the religious people to get together and stop bickering, fighting?
Okay, let's ask him. Reza, what do you think?
Actually, it is not only Shias and Sunnis. In Iran, we have Christians, we have Jews, we have Zoroastrians, we have Muslims, many different sects of Muslims. Actually, Sunnis are maybe more than 20 groups themselves, and Shias are maybe more than 10 different varieties of Shias. And we have been living with each other for so many 100 years with no problems.
But
The most important, the most important religious fight between Shias and Sunnis happened almost 300 years ago between Iranian Empire, Persian Empire, and Ottoman Empire. And actually, it was not a Shia-Sunni fight; it was two empires, but they used religion to justify their actions. After that time, we didn't have any problems. Actually, personally, I have so many Sunni friends, Sunni colleagues. I did have many because in Azerbaijan we have, especially in western Azerbaijan, there are so many Christians living there. I had so many Christian friends, and we never had any problems with them. Actually, in Iranian parliament, they do have some representatives. But the Sunni and Shia thing is a new thing. And it is basically because of some Shia hardliners on the one hand, and many Sunni, not all Sunnis, but Wahhabi Sunnis from Saudi Arabia. They raise the issue not for the sake of religion itself. It is basically political. They want to dominate the region by abusing people's beliefs. Both groups do that. So that's not people's problem. My father used to have a very good Kurd friend, and the Kurds are Sunnis in Iran. And we used to, the kids of the two families used to play with each other for so many years with no problems. They taught me Kurdish, I tried to teach them Persian and Turkish. They taught me Sunni ceremonies, I taught them Shia ceremonies. Actually, differences are not that much. But we never had problems. Actually, we never understand what Sunni is, what Shia is. But now, these people in power usually try to manipulate people's beliefs. It is basically political, not religious.
This is what I'm hearing with every person from Iran who's ever been on this show. And it is almost exactly those words. It is people with political aspirations using the religion as a means to an end to gain power over people.
Yeah.
So is that correct or not?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Oh, go ahead, John.
I wanted to ask you a real quick question that's not going to be quick about the Iranian nuclear agreement and the trade deal. I personally have been opposed to this deal for a long time. I feel like it enforces or reinforces the elements of Iranian society that contribute most negatively to the people of Iran, empowers the government, etc. I was hoping maybe you could give us your take on it. What do you think?
Actually, I have to oppose you, John, because it empowered people, not the government. The deal in Iran empowered the people. Now people have some say on this. People have to decide what kind of let's say nuclear power they want to have, and they prefer peaceful one. Actually, they had preferred peaceful one before. But if you don't have these kinds of deals, if you do not try to understand what pressure was and is on Iranian people, then you are going to have the bomb. Sooner or later, you push governments to have it if you don't have these kinds of deals.
If you mind, I'd like to also oppose you on that.
Yeah.
Because a large amount of that money that was freed up in that deal, right?
Yeah.
Immediately went to weapons from Russia.
No.
Right?
No, it's not. Just look at the budget for arms and these military things in Iranian budget and other countries' budget.
And you think the budgets
it's
are
not
honest?
that much. I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
they're not.
But yeah. Anyway, When you go to Iran, many people believe like you, and they are opposed to that. But what can you do when you have so many crazy people around you? You have ISIS on the west, you have Taliban on the west, you have these problems in Azerbaijan, Armenia on the north, you have those many other countries on the south, and you have this, and they justify gaining military power to support and to defend themselves. People do not like it, but it is justified, right? So let's have it in a peaceful way.
Well, some of it's justified, but when you look at like groups like Hezbollah that
Okay.
get funding from the Iranian government, I mean, it's really hard to justify that.
Right, right.
And yet, that's what they keep doing
But-
over and
but
over
anyway,
again.
what country doesn't do it? What country doesn't do it?
Well, the United
all
States doesn't
countries
have a
do
terrorist
support
network.
their supporters.
Okay, tell you what, we're up
But
against the break. Go ahead.
I don't agree with this. But anyway, it is a policy people have, right? Who doesn't do it?
Okay, we're coming right back.
Yeah,
That's a
okay.
good question. But we have callers. We have Bruce and Catherine that both want to visit with you, and we have two lines open. This is a fascinating conversation, and I hope you'll get involved, and I hope you're sitting on the edge of your seat. So we'll be right back. We're back. This is Talk Back, the Montana World Affairs Council on the radio. One of the things I really enjoy about this is because we learn so much. It's just, we really appreciate the fact that Reza Samar is joining us here in the studio and sharing his opinions, his thoughts, his experiences, from not only here in America, but from living in Iran. So let's get to the phones and say good morning to Bruce. Hi, Bruce. You're on with our guest. Hi.
Good morning, gentlemen and John.
My God!
I kind of hope this keeps up.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to ask about what is the possibility of a reformation of the Muslim faith, and if there's any movement towards that to maybe get it a little more common sense and up to date.
In other words, unifying those two sects together? Is that what you're talking about?
Maybe, yeah, and kind of stopping all the violence. Maybe that would be one way to do it. And I've heard talk that maybe a reformation could be possible, but...
Well, let's ask him. What do you think, Reza?
Yeah, actually, there are some movements. There used to be some movements. Almost 100 years ago, a clergyman who was a real international clergyman, Sayyid Jamaluddin Asadabadi, he was called. He tried to do so, and he was so successful, joining Iranian, Egyptian, and Turkish clergymen and ideologists together, and he created kind of mutual understanding. And he established a foundation which exists nowadays under the name of Darut Taqrib, the home of joining. But the point is, in the last 20 years, after Iranian Revolution, not the 20 or 30 years, after Iranian Revolution, there was some huge movements in Arab countries. They wanted to revolutionize themselves, to modernize themselves, to join the international communities. So they had two options. One option was chosen by countries like Emirates to modernize their countries, and another option was to Islamicize their countries. It was chosen by Saudis. So Saudis chose being more Islamicizing their countries. And the kind of Islam they had there is Wahhabism. Wahhabism is a very fundamentalistic view of Islam. I do not understand all the principles of Wahhabism because I'm not an expert in that. But my understanding as people living there is that it is too fundamental, it is too radical, it is too limited understanding of Islam.
So
narrow. They supported, it is so narrow. So they had money, they had power, then they had their own understanding and interpretation of Islam. So they supported it. They created Taliban because of Soviet invasion to Afghanistan. They used Taliban to create so many other religious groups. They funded so many people, in many parts of the world, to establish mosques, to establish Islamic societies. They went to Chechnya and in Russia. They established some group there because they had money to do so. So that Islamicization of Wahhabism created radicalism in other parts of Islamic world too. So some radical Shias were created in Iran. And they started establishing their own radios, their own TV stations, speaking against each other and creating animosity. Yeah, people are doing so much, especially in Iran. We have so many very, very good scholars, very good university professors trying to establish mutual understanding between among these different sects, Islamic sects. To some extent, they are successful. But people in power in both countries, in both, let's say, divisions of Islam, usually do not let them succeed because they use this religious thing to gain power, to stay in power, and to do whatever they want to do.
Go ahead, Bob.
Raz, I'd like to also mention we've had Raheel Rasa on air, who is a person that is part of that Reformation. Mm-hmm. So this is taking place in many parts of the Islamic world.
Yeah.
We just need to know that it's happening and understand that this is moving in that direction. But there's something here that I've long advocated. The Saudis would not be able to establish the madrasas to the degree that they have if they didn't have oil wealth.
Yes.
And I think what you see in the Middle East right now is a retrenchment, not necessarily of pushing forward these issues, but in time, the economic weapon of lower oil prices is an economic agent of change. Right. And the Saudis are looking very closely at that very issue right now as they're trying to reorganize their economic system, which means that the potential, as it does in Iran and other countries, for having to open up to consider other options has that potential to make these changes that Bruce is alluding to.
Yeah. Actually, Saudis used power of oil against Iran. They produced more to make prices lower to damage Iranian economy, and they did so actually, but at the same time they damaged their own economy. Now they have problems, as Bob said.
Now they can't get it back, right? Yeah,
they can get it back. They're trying to get it back, though, to stop increasing the production. But anyway, they have problems because Iran has come back to the oil field, and they producing more oil.
And it's part of the nuclear negotiations is to take the sanctions off to allow Iran to come into the market again.
And not only that, but America discovered fracking. They developed it now. They're becoming a major oil power. So Saudi Arabia finds themselves in a big squeeze.
They did have an average of 10% reduction in their oil sale in the last, I think, year. So they do have problems.
Okay, we're going to take a break. When we come back, Catherine is waiting very patiently. We have 3 lines open. This is a fascinating discussion, and again, we'd love to have you be a part of it at 721-1290. Stay with us.
It's called a dictatorship.
Hey, we're back on Talkback. All right, our guest in studio, Reza Samar, is Associate Professor of Sociolinguistics and Applied Linguistics. We haven't even really gotten to that yet.
Can we even explain what that is, please?
Before we get to Catherine, would you explain what that means? What is that topic?
Actually, in sociolinguistics, you study the relationship between language and society. On the surface, it is kind of difficult to understand. But anyway, what certain languages, different social groups speak, like gender groups, like classes, upper classes, lower classes, ethnic groups, religious groups, what kind of languages do they speak? And what kind of influence language has on people? You know, whenever you have a new word in your language, then you have a new world in your mind. A new word sometimes creates a new world in your mind. So that's the influence of language on mind, on society. So we study the mutual relationship between language and society.
A lot of that has to do with nuance, doesn't it? I mean, because with every language, there are nuances. Like I can say it's sunny today, or I could say it's sunny today. You know what I mean? You see what I mean?
Whatever you do with your language has some influence on society. Right. But mostly it is unconscious. I did have a presentation on just the word negotiation in English and in Persian. And because of the lack of understanding of the meaning of the negotiation, we were not able to negotiate to each other. The only person who was able to negotiate was Mr. Zaif, because he knows English, he knows English culture, and he knows what negotiation is. Otherwise, to negotiate in Iran means to have compromise. And compromise in Iran means to betray your country. Mm. So you never negotiate to betray your country, right? That's our understanding of negotiation. Yeah. But your understanding of compromise is not like that. So if you have mutual understandings, then you can have negotiations and you can have deals. Otherwise, you don't.
Try negotiating with Trump.
Yeah.
When he wants to take your country, he'll get the deal done.
I'll do that.
All right, let's get to the phone.
If he tries to speak human language.
All right. Catherine, you're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Good morning, gentlemen and John.
Gentlemen and John.
I don't know where that came from, but, kind of funny.
He likes
All
it.
right.
He likes it.
He likes it. Okay. You actually kind of answered one of my questions about the Wahhabist type denomination, which I was kind of wondering how much inroad, if any, that is made in the Sunni population of Iran. But I was also wondering about the status of the relationship between the Saudis and Iran, because I was wondering if it was partially for the control of holy sites, because the Saudis claim the status of protectorate of the holy sites in Saudi Arabia, and also about how about Egypt and Iran, how that's going. Also wanted to point out that the agreement between the United States and Iran was never signed into anything, so it really has very little meaning. And one other thing is a question about the language and the social aspects of language.
Sociolinguistics, yeah.
Thank you. Sociolinguistics. My mouth isn't working very well today. Which comes first, language or thought? And which influences the other?
Wow. All right.
Okay.
How deep do you want to go? Okay,
Yeah.
Thanks, Catherine. So there you
Which
go.
one do you want me to answer first? The last one or the first one?
Let's go with the last one.
With the last one.
Thought or
Actually,
speech?
If you ask me, the beginning of humankind happens with language. Before language, we don't have humankind. We do have animals looking like human beings, but language is the beginner of human thought system and human society system. Without language, you can't imagine any human society, any small human social group, like a family, like two people communicating with each other. When you communicate, you have to use language, otherwise you can't. Yeah, you might say that animals do have communication system, but it is not any language like human language. It is instinctive, non-changeable language they use, which is so different from human language, which has creativity in it, which is changing any second of life. Any second we speak and use the language. So for me, humankind begins with language, thinking begins with language. Some people believe that before concept formation, before language, at age, let's say 2 or 3, you have concept formation. Actually, it is so difficult to define a concept and differentiate it from language. Some say that it is possible to think having those concepts in your mind. Some other oppose this. But anyway, language is the most important creation in the universe. And it changes an animal with almost no ability to a human being with almost limitless abilities.
This idea is interesting for those with a Judeo-Christian background. They believe that God spoke the world into existence in the New Testament.
And the Word is God.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was
and
God.
And the Word is God.
My question for you is there a tradition of that language preceding thought in the Quran?
Actually, I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on this. But in Quran, it says that we created human beings and we taught him language. Immediately after creation, there is the language. A very interesting thing in Quran is the only difference between human beings and angels. You know what it is?
Language.
It is not the language, just naming. A very small function of language is naming. Naming things and human beings. In Quran says that angels do not know naming. And human beings do know what naming is. Imagine if you don't have a name, you don't exist.
Tell you what, we have one more 1 minute timeout. Marilyn's on the line. We have a couple lines open. Just a few minutes left. This is fascinating. Again, I keep saying that because it is. That's a good word. 721-1290 is our number. I should come up with another one. We'll be right back. And we're back on Talkback. Just a few minutes left, and so let's. Catherine asked the first question we didn't get to, so go ahead.
Iran-Saudi relations. Actually, I'm not a policymaker to say what goes on in policy, but for me, there used to be huge differences between Arabs and non-Arabs. For Arabs, non-Arabs are usually called Ajams. Ajams are Iranians. So for Arabs, either you are one of them or none of them. If you are one of them, you are Arab. If you are none of them, you are Ajam, which is Persian, which is Iranian. So Iranians and Arabs did have historical differences, but anyway, after accepting Islam by Iranians and helping Islam to grow and have golden ages for a few hundred years in 17th century, 17th to 18th centuries. So this social differences were not important anymore. But after this Wahhabism and Shiism in Iran and Wahhabism in Saudi Arabia, religious differences began to flourish. And now it is not only social Arab-Ajam division, not only Wahhabi and Shia division, but also political Saudi and Iran division, which is important. And now they use all these kinds of historical and religious things to kind of manipulate those against each other.
And they're
it is problematic.
They're perpetuating the problem,
yes,
right? Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately,
okay.
yes.
So let's get back to the phone. Marilyn, you're on Talkback with our guest, Reza Samar. Hi.
Okay, hopefully this isn't too far off topic. I think it's in range, but in their attempts to Islamicize America, I have found out that millions of Americans are now unknowingly eating unlabeled halal meat from their local grocery stores and food chains. Halal meat is from animals that are ritualistically slaughtered as a sacrifice to Allah, as required by Sharia law.
Good. Yeah.
63 restaurant chains like Outback, Popeyes, and KFC, and 37 market chains like Safeway, Costco, Whole Foods, and Walmart sell halal. So for me, this is not, it's a problem because I don't want them Islamicizing America, but I do pray before I eat so that, gets rid of that curse. But I'd like to know if you know, is that meat grown here? Is it grown overseas and shipped here? Why is this happening? Do you have any idea about this?
Okay. Thanks, Marilyn.
That's one point. First of all, I have to tell Marilyn you that actually, from my own point of view, we never try to Islamicize other people unless they like it. Actually, we are not allowed to do it. We can't push for it. My ideology, I'm a Muslim. My ideology says that you can't push anybody to become Muslim unless they want it themselves. When they come to you, you have to be open to explain. So, no Islamicization, at least from Iranian point of view. I am a member of Iranian community. Second, actually, halal means when you want to kill an animal, you have to face it to Mecca and say, in the name of God. That's it. And there's a verse in Quran which says the meat or the animal slaughtered by people of book, which is Christians, Judaism, and Zoroastrianism, is halal for Muslims. But people in different Islamic sects have different interpretations of this verse. But it is one of the latest verses Prophet Muhammad mentioned, and it says the meat or the food of people of books are halal to Muslims. But being halal means just what kind of whatever animal. Exception. There are some exceptions. Pig is one exception. It is never halal. So it says just when you want to kill, say in the name of God. So ask God's permission if you want to kill a creature of God. That's it.
For many followers, kosher.
Yeah.
It's the same concept.
It is the same thing for as kosher.
Reza, I want to go back to what we were talking about in terms of the Saudis and Iranians, because we were having a conversation the other day about the youth populations.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something I thought was fascinating in terms of the perceptions and differences. Would you please speak to that?
Most of Iranian population is young people between the ages of 20 to 30, 35. And many of them have access. Actually, Iran was among the first countries having access to internet in the region. Millions and millions of people in Iran have access to the internet, and they know everything about the world. So So this youth mindset is totally different from the mindset I have. Sometimes I have difficulties. My job is to study their language. I collect data. Believe me, sometimes I collect some sentences I have difficulties to understand. I have to ask my kids to say what it means. So they have new language. They have new mindset.
How do you say Snapchat in Persian? I just
Yeah. Gap.
Yeah.
It is
gap. Right.
Yeah. So they do have new ideologies, new things, new interpretations of even Islam in the country. They do have their own interpretation of Islam, and they are so hopeful to their future, and they are working very hard. They are educating themselves. Now, educated population in Iran is more than any other country in the region, especially females. Just imagine 62% of university populations students are females, not males.
That's in Iran.
That's in Iran, yeah.
Okay.
So they are educating themselves, and they are so hopeful of their future. I'm sure that they are going to make their own future.
Contrast that with Saudi Arabia, though.
Yeah, of course. In Saudi Arabia, females cannot drive, let alone educate themselves.
Right.
But in Iran, the story is so different. Very different from any other part of the world, maybe.
We have about a minute left.
Okay.
So if you could just capsulize, using your wonderful gift of language, the point you would like to make to our listeners today, to leave them with about Iran and about the people of Iran and what you've been sharing with us.
Dear Americans, in Iran, we try to understand you as Americans. At the same time, people try to understand American policymakers. Please, you try to understand what Iranians think, how Iranians live, and how Iranians like you. You want to know it? Go to Iran. See how hospitable, how kind they are. Try to understand Iranian ways of life, Iranian ideologies, Iranian being Iranians. If you do that, we have so many things to share. So many things to share. Believe me, because of this, not unconscious, share things we have in Iran. Iranian people love American people.
Okay.
I do so too.
Thank you so very much.
Okay.
Appreciate you being with us. Thanks, Bob.
You're
Always a
more than
pleasure.
welcome.
John,
My
what's
pleasure.
coming up on tomorrow's fabulous radio program?
We'll be speaking with constitutional scholar, former professor Rob Nadelson about whatever's on your mind.
Okay, you guys have a great day, and we'll see you at the Bernie rally, all right? Don't get rained on.